Yeah, I'm thinking about life these days. Because life doesn't seem like the life we have known so far. It functions as a marker for dualism in our traditional usages. For example, life is regarded uh, as a borderline between the animate and the inanimate. So it's a marker of organicism or organism-centered perspective. Maybe, but however, life is not confined to organism and higher the animals. That's what the pandemic has taught us very painfully. COVID-19 virus, as you know, is not the organism. Virus is a kind of, the being on the borderline between the, organism and things. So, but this virus, which is not organism, but we cannot say it is not life either. Anyway, this COVID-19 virus is between things and organism, almost stop this global civilization, which means this thing or organism, the exert its own agency uh, onto the entire civilizations. The word life, in this sense, should be used with the eraser. That is, in the Heideggerian sense, life under the cross. So that's what I think. The problem, one of the problem of the climate change. As a matter of fact, I think life is between, being between the animate and the inanimate, between the organic and the inorganic, between elements, things, microbes, bacteria, eukaryotic forms of life, including plants, animal, and higher forms of intelligence, and so on. Uh, and this kind of dualism, we often interpret that the kind of an organism is a kind of active, and then inanimate is a kind of a things is as passive. But I think life lies in the between. Life consists of organism, microbes, bacteria, and fungus, as well as inanimate things. You know the Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin wrote about book about the English worms, and he said worms inaugurated the civilization. Uh, because the English worms eat the plant bacteria underneath of soils, and then he just excrete the kind of things surface of the soil. This is a kind of the life cycle of English worms, but we call it is a kind of some purification of soil. So there's a kind of a soil cleaned by the English worms. We plant the crops and the fruit or uh, the things, and then we get the extra crops. And upon the basis of extra crops, uh, and human civilization has been built. So here, the earth, microbes, bacteria, English worms, humans, probably the kind of artificial tools. So they are just entangled. That's the life. Life is not just kind of simple. So today's challenges of climate crisis and the ecological disaster, it means that we are entangled with other forms of existence, including non-human forms of life, minerals, viruses, bacteria, and so on, significantly influence on what humans think as well as what they behave. When you are hungry, probably you are nervous and then you are very sensitive to things because your physical condition is not good, which means that our physical conditions probably influence on your mind, not vice versa. Or yeah, you can control the physical condition through your mind control. But anyway, there is a kind of both ways. The current crisis of climate is the collision of two scales of time, according to the Dipesh Chakrabarty. The geological time and the human-centered time of history. So far, in the age of postmodernism, we focused on the subject of history. So we are just doing things within the time scale of history, disregarding the geological times. But now, the geological time show itself up in the disguise of crisis. For example, the human body consists of 70% of water. And we can ask, where does this water come from? The water in each of our body contains 5 billion years of earth from which it comes. The all kind of element is recycled. Now, problem is that this water is severely damaged. Another example is the breastfeeding. Some breastfeeding milk examined, and the result is that very sharp. Milk from the mother's breast cannot be sold in stores, even if it would be legally allowed, because mother's milk is severely contaminated and polluted already. And then this test was done with the mothers living in North America, which means it's a developed country. They care of what they eat, but even, those people's breast milk is already contaminated. That's the kind of shock. So we think that renewable energy is a kind of one alternative, but transition to renewable energy is not all about the crisis. Indeed, what is matter is life itself. So we need to go beyond organism-centered viewpoint of life, like virus. We should care viruses because we don't care of viruses. They care of themselves, and then that's what happened in the pandemic. What I think climate justice issue very important, and we should care. But in this climate justice issue, something is missing. The one thing is that the climate disaster will bring on doomsday, equally both to rich and poor, and to the developed and the developing. For example, the US citizen does not refer to the privileged as a whole. The average life expectancy of Afro-American is shorter than labor in China, which means the life conditions of Afro-American, average is worse than, maybe worse than the laborers in China. So we need to think that as Whitehead said, we'll swim together or being drawn together. We are doomed regardless of race, sex, gender, ethnicity, class, so on, in this critical period of Anthropocene. All of us has become the geological agents of the Anthropocene, leaving inerasable footprint upon the earth, not the US. This collision of geological sense of time and the historical sense of time causing the problem. Sometimes emphasizing our historical or critical sense of climate justice, one displaces the geological agent issue with the historical or critical issues. So we need a change our perspective from organic life to entanglement of beings, or from an individuated form of life to entangled network of life, from interaction to interaction, as Karen Barad said. That is, interaction does not come from the relation of the subject and the object. Rather, entangled interaction is first, and then the distinction of the subject and the object arises. So, recognizing human as a geological agents, especially in this Anthropocene, is a very important, I think. So I just to propose the kind of Korean idea about this crisis. Yeah, I got 2 minutes. Yeah, I will finish in 2 minutes. The Goryeo dynasty is which means in the Middle Age. Korean writer Lee Kyu-bo says Yeomul. In translation means the staying with the things. And he just showed that his desk, he's a writer. He always write with his desk. That one day the uh, one leg of the desk is broken, and then he just he trying to fix the leg of his desk, and he's saying 동병상부, which means saving each other through same pain and suffering. And I think we can extend this idea as your in translation, becoming humanity by staying with. 여인 means we represent the voice of the non-humans. It sounds like too anthropocentric, but our democracy failed because when political representatives of us should raise their voice on behalf of us, also representing us, because they are the subject of us, but not the master of us. However, in current political system, the political representation has become the masters of us, only pretending to be the subject in the electoral seasons. This way, this political system hides the perversion of our political representation system. Becoming humanity by staying with means that we represent the voices of the non-humans, including the inhumans. We are humans only when we are on behalf of them. We can become each other as humans, sharing the same pain and suffering. Yeah. Thank you.
So first the presentation, personally, it was a little bit difficult to understand about the discourses, the agency of things and interaction. Actually, I didn't have got the full draft paper before, so I just read about abstract from you. So that's why there's a lot of questions occurred to me. So as much as I understood, I will show you. So the point I discovered that being is both the living and the living, and that are entangled and existence as a collective. So I think this notion is very valuable, contribution widely reconciling of beings are including non-beings like non-visual, visual living. So, and I recognize that all beings are identified, the things has the agential power. So it's namely beings are all agencies to promote active. It can be a way to identify oppressed and struggle with things, embrace the subjecthood, autonomous and spontaneous energy to liberate on their own. So thus, we can characterize the environmental nature, and the women are not anymore oppressed or weakness being. So I think we can identify woman nature has agencies to act forward the liberation. So and for me, the interaction is very much a new term. So in my understanding, it occurred to me that is epistemological dimension, idea like idea, thoughts, theory, analogy, and spirit, or even feeling are not separated phenomenon. I mean, the phenomenon which is maturing material beings. So there is interaction, so which is my understanding. So I don't know if it's right. So the agency of things performed maturing thoughts in the interaction. So it leaves Christianity's perspective from human-centered to the organism-centered, as you mentioned that. So despite all the good works we can point to, I still wonder follow points. So firstly, it emerged on what is death? What is death and resurrection? So how can we understand the death and the resurrection in terms of non-living is also being? So has agency power. So as the human pass away, physical death, I mean the no breath, the human body, it goes underground. It become a non-living being. This, I think. So then what is the death? And so this is my question. So, and also second, as I mentioned that before at the beginning, your study is too difficult to me. So grab the terminological for me. So it occur, how can we interpret your discourses into congregation of local people, local churches? So I know that if this is academic field and a logical discussion about liberation theology, but it is to epistemological approach, and it is seemingly far from reality of human life.